The town square buzzed with life on a crisp Saturday morning. Brightly colored stalls lined the cobblestone paths, their tables laden with fresh produce, handmade crafts, and baked goods. Families strolled together, sipping coffee and chatting with neighbors, while children tugged at their parents' hands, eager for treats. Karen moved purposefully through the crowd, her canvas tote swinging at her side as she scanned the market for her favorite vendors. A longtime resident, Karen prided herself on her involvement in the community. She wasn't shy about speaking her mind, especially when she felt something or someone threatened the harmony of her town. Her steps faltered when her eyes landed on a man walking casually through the market. He was in his late 40s, dressed in jeans and a crisp button-down shirt. But it wasn't his outfit that caught her attention. It was the bold red MAGA hat perched on his head. Karen's jaw tightened. To her, the hat was more than a political symbol. It was a statement she viewed as divisive and inflammatory. The cheerful atmosphere of the market suddenly felt tainted. She watched as the man stopped at a stall, inspecting jars of homemade jam. People glanced at him, some whispering to each other, but no one approached him. Karen couldn't believe the audacity. "Not in my town," she muttered, straightening her shoulders. With swift determination, she marched toward him, her tote bag swinging as she cut through the crowd. "Excuse me," she called, her voice sharp enough to turn a few heads. The man looked up, his expression calm and polite. "Yes," he replied. Karen planted herself firmly in front of him, her hands on her hips. "Do you really think it's appropriate to wear that here?" she demanded, her tone laced with indignation. The man raised an eyebrow, unbothered by her confrontation. "I don't see why it wouldn't be," he said evenly. Karen's irritation flared. "This is a community space, a place for families, not for political grandstanding." He chuckled softly. "I'm just here to enjoy the market, same as you." Her voice grew louder, drawing the attention of nearby shoppers. "That hat represents everything wrong with this country. You shouldn't be flaunting it here." The man remained calm, his composed demeanor only fueling Karen's frustration. As the crowd began to gather, Karen had no idea this confrontation would soon become much larger than she ever intended. The bustling market grew quieter as more people noticed the heated exchange between Karen and the man in the red MAGA hat. Vendors paused mid-sale, shoppers glanced over curiously, and a small crowd began to form. Karen, her face flushed with anger, refused to relent. "You're bringing divisive politics into a peaceful community space," Karen snapped, her voice sharp and unwavering. "This is supposed to be a safe place for everyone, and that hat represents hate and division." The man stood tall, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to Karen's fiery tone. "I'm sorry you feel that way," he replied evenly, his voice steady but firm. "But I'm not here to argue or cause trouble. I'm here to enjoy the market like everyone else," Karen scoffed, crossing her arms tightly over her chest. "You can't just walk around flaunting something like that and expect people to ignore it. This town doesn't need people like you stirring the pot." He raised an eyebrow. "People like me?" "Yes," Karen said, her voice rising. "People who come here and think they can shove their politics in everyone's face. You're not welcome here." A murmur rippled through the onlookers, some nodding in agreement with Karen while others shifted uncomfortably. The man held his ground, his composure unshaken. "I'm not shoving anything in anyone's face," he said firmly. "I'm simply wearing a hat. It's my right just as it's your right to speak your mind. But yelling and making a scene like this doesn't solve anything." Karen's fists clenched. "It's not just a hat," she shot back. "It's a symbol of everything wrong with this country." The man sighed, glancing around at the gathering crowd. "We all have different perspectives, ma'am. That doesn't mean we need to treat each other like enemies. I'm not here to argue. I'm just here to buy jam." Karen felt emboldened by the attention, her indignation growing with every passing moment. "Well, if you're going to wear that here, maybe you should think about shopping somewhere else," she shouted, her voice echoing through the market. The man remained silent for a moment, his calm gaze meeting hers. "I think I'll finish my shopping now," he said quietly, before turning back to the vendor's table. Karen fumed, the crowd around her buzzing with whispered opinions. She had taken a stand, but she had no idea the consequences of this confrontation were about to ripple far beyond the market. By the afternoon, the bustling town square was back to its usual rhythm. But the confrontation between Karen and the man in the red MAGA hat had left a lingering buzz. Karen went about her errands, unaware that several bystanders had captured the exchange on video. Later that evening, as Karen was putting away groceries, her phone buzzed repeatedly with notifications. Curious, she opened one of the messages from a friend. "Karen, is this you?" Attached was a video, already racking up hundreds of views, of her confrontation at the market. The caption read, "Local woman confronts MAGA hat wearer at community market. Right or wrong?" Karen's stomach twisted as she watched herself on screen, her voice raised and gestures animated. The video cut to the man's calm responses, contrasting sharply with her fiery accusations. Comments poured in beneath the post. "Good for her, standing up for what's right. This is ridiculous. Why is she harassing someone over a hat? Whatever happened to respecting differences? She's out of line." Karen's irritation flared, but beneath it, unease began to creep in. The video was spreading quickly and opinions were clearly divided. As she scrolled through the growing online debate, a knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. It was her neighbor, Susan, holding her phone with a concerned expression. "Karen," Susan began cautiously, "have you seen the video? People are saying some things." Karen sighed heavily. "Yeah, I've seen it. Let them talk. I did what I thought was right." Susan hesitated, then said, "There's something you should know. The man you confronted today, that's David Wilson." Karen frowned. "Who?" Susan's eyes widened. "David Wilson, the town's new mayor. He was elected just last month." Karen froze. "The mayor?" Susan nodded. "Yes, and I heard he was just there to support local vendors and meet residents. I don't think he even realized people would recognize him." Karen's heart sank. She had yelled at the mayor, accused him of being divisive, and declared him unwelcome, all in front of half the town. As the reality of her actions hit her, Karen felt a rush of embarrassment and fear. What if there were consequences beyond the online backlash? What if her outburst had damaged her reputation in the community? Or worse? Shutting the door after Susan left, Karen sat down heavily, the weight of the day finally catching up to her. For the first time, she wondered if her actions had gone too far. The town hall buzzed with anticipation. Residents filled the seats, eager to hear from David Wilson, the newly elected mayor, during his first public address since taking office. Karen sat near the back, her heart pounding as she avoided eye contact with her neighbors. She hadn't been summoned directly, but Susan had strongly suggested she attend. The room quieted as David took the stage, his calm demeanor and confident posture commanding the audience's attention. He began by outlining his vision for the town, improving infrastructure, supporting local businesses, and fostering a stronger sense of community. Then his tone shifted. "I'd like to take a moment to address something that happened recently," David said, his eyes scanning the room. Karen shrank slightly in her seat, her pulse quickening. "At the community market this past weekend, there was a misunderstanding, an unfortunate exchange that highlighted the challenges we face as a society," he continued. "It's no secret that we all hold different beliefs and perspectives, but it's crucial that we approach those differences with civility and mutual respect." Karen felt her cheeks burn as murmurs rippled through the crowd. David didn't name her, but it was clear he was referring to their confrontation. "Disagreements are natural," he said, his tone steady and inclusive. "But how we handle those disagreements defines the kind of community we want to be. Let's strive to listen more, to empathize, and to remember that we are all part of the same town, working toward the same goals." Applause erupted, filling the hall. Karen's embarrassment deepened, but she also felt a flicker of hope. His words weren't accusatory. They were constructive, an invitation for growth. After the meeting, as attendees mingled, Karen hesitated by the exit. She knew she couldn't leave without speaking to him. Summoning her courage, she approached David as he shook hands with residents. "Mr. Wilson," she said quietly when it was her turn. He turned to her, his expression warm and approachable. "Yes?" "I'm Karen," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I was the one who confronted you at the market. I wanted to apologize. I let my frustration get the best of me and I misjudged you. I'm truly sorry." David paused, then smiled. "Thank you, Karen. I appreciate that. It takes courage to apologize. We all have moments we're not proud of. But what matters is how we move forward. Karen nodded, relief washing over her. I'll do better, she promised. David patted her shoulder. That's all anyone can ask. Let's keep building a community we're proud of. Together. As Karen left the hall, she felt lighter. She'd made a mistake, but now she had a chance to make it right. In the days following the town hall meeting, Karen couldn't shake David Wilson's words. His message about civility and respect echoed in her mind, making her reevaluate her behavior. For the first time, she realized how much her words and actions could affect others. Not just the person she directed them toward, but everyone watching. Karen began to make small changes. She signed up to volunteer at the community center, helping organize local events like food drives and park cleanups. Initially, her efforts felt awkward as she noticed the wary glances of her neighbors who had seen the video of her outburst. But Karen persisted. She greeted everyone with warmth, listened to their concerns, and made an effort to connect with people she might have avoided before. Slowly, the walls began to come down. At a cleanup event, one of her neighbors approached her with a hesitant smile. "It's nice to see you here, Karen," they said. "We all make mistakes. What matters is how we grow from them." Their words stuck with Karen, motivating her to keep going. Over the months, Karen's involvement in the community deepened. She helped with the farmers' market setup and even spearheaded a campaign to raise funds for a new playground. Her once fiery demeanor softened into a more thoughtful and empathetic approach. She learned to pause, listen, and try to understand others' perspectives before reacting. Her transformation didn't go unnoticed. Neighbors who had been critical of her began to acknowledge her efforts. "You've really turned a corner," Susan said one afternoon. "I'm proud of you." At the annual town fair, Karen spotted David Wilson mingling with the crowd. Gathering her courage, she walked over to him. "Mr. Wilson," she said with a smile, "it's good to see you again." David turned, recognizing her immediately. "Karen," he said warmly, "how have you been?" "Better," she admitted. "Thanks to your words at the town hall. They really made me think about how I can do more to support the community instead of dividing it." David nodded, his expression kind. "It's wonderful to see the progress you've made. This town thrives when people like you step up and lead by example." As they parted ways, Karen felt a renewed sense of purpose. Her journey had taught her the value of humility, growth, and respect. The experience had been a humbling one, but it had also shown her the power of second chances and the importance of treating everyone with dignity, regardless of their beliefs.